One of the pioneers of aerodynamics is put to the test, the Tatra 87. The brand Tatra ranks among the world's oldest automobile manufacturers. It began producing motor cars as early as 1897 in Kopřivnice, in what's now the Czech Republic. Our car tester Christoph Bauer explains that the first cars to come out of Kopřivnice still carry the name Nesseldorf. That's what the town was called before World War I, when it still belonged to Austria-Hungary. And Kopřivnice is also the only town, as far as he's aware, to have a car in its coat of arms, proving just how important the industry was for the region. In 1920, the company changed its name to Tatra, after the highest mountain in former Czechoslovakia. The Austrian car maker Hans Ledvinka and his team created truly revolutionary designs. And Christoph also mentions the streamlined shape, the brand's most iconic feature, and a brand new concept back then. The first streamlining experiments began in the 1920s. A new teardrop-shaped body was used to minimize air resistance, maximize speed, and reduce fuel consumption. And on a diverse range of different vehicles, including airships, aircrafts, trains, and of course, cars. Christoph explains that the Tatra 87 and its direct predecessor, the 77, were some of the world's first vehicles to be developed in a wind tunnel. The engineers enlisted Hungarian Zeppelin builder Paul Járai for help. Christoph says the most successful product of their ambitious research was arguably this car, the Tatra 87, presented in 1936 with a drag coefficient of just 0.36. And that's still very impressive today. A modest 75 horsepower is still enough to accelerate the Tatra 87 to over 150 kilometers per hour, with a recommended cruising speed of 135. In the 1930s, the Tatra was one of the world's fastest series-produced vehicles. Christoph recommends taking your foot off the gas to really experience how streamlined the car is. It just carries on rolling, totally unaffected by the wind. And of course, less air resistance means less fuel consumption. This car uses just 12.2 liters per 100 kilometers. Most cars of a similar performance would get through twice that. Christoph would say it's a cross between a luxury sedan and a super sports car, and a miracle of fuel consumption, which nowadays, he says, is a real rarity.
In the
interior, too, he's surrounded by pure luxury. Leather as far as the eye can see. And this Art Deco-style cockpit has so many buttons no owner could possibly know what they'll all do. Pure opulence. He also mentions the fantastic streamlining, with a giant tail fin attached in the center. It's supposed to provide a smoother drive at high speeds. You might have noticed its similarity to the VW Beetle, says Christoph, and that's not just a coincidence. The builder Hans Ledvinka was good friends with Ferdinand Porsche, the father of Volkswagen. So who stole whose idea? Well, it's certainly a bone of contention, and Christoph's staying well out of it. The front section with its 3 headlights is one of the most striking features of the Tatra 87, along with its enormous air scoop to ventilate the rear engine, and its unique silhouette with covered aerodynamic rear wheels. The manufacturing is, without a doubt, first rate, but there's one very odd design flaw. The trunk is only accessible from the inside. But still, the Tatra 87 is an undisputed gem of pre-war automotive design, a true work of art. Christoph explains that in this Tatra the engine isn't fitted at the front, but under a gigantic hood at the back. It's an air-cooled V8 engine with a 3-liter displacement, overhead camshafts, and 75 horsepower. The engine block and transmission case are made from Electron, a super lightweight magnesium alloy which reduces the car's weight to just 1,370 kilograms. The 4-speed gearbox with unsynchronized first and second gears does take some getting used to. And it is prone to crunch a bit. The view out the back is terrible. The double windshield and the fins on the hood restrict the view. So what goes on behind the car really is anyone's guess. But the Tatra is reliable. Czech adventurers Jiří Hanselka and Miroslav Zikmund successfully traveled the world in the T-87 between 1947 and 1950. To sum up, Christoph would call this a groundbreaking car that, at the time, was light years ahead of the competition. But it was an elusive beauty. Production was put on hold in 1939 because of the Second World War. Manufacturing resumed and continued into the 1950s, but only 3,023 models were ever built. Still, to this day, it's the only series-produced sedan built in a wind tunnel using aerodynamic research. He would definitely call it a milestone in automotive history.
Insofern ist der Tatra 87 definitiv ein Meilenstein der Automobilgeschichte.
Today, Tatra only makes trucks, so unfortunately, history it is.